thank you for returning, my lovely law enthusiast humans. Karen Reed trial happening. I am going to be doing summaries as the perspective of an outside juror. I have no legal or professional things in the way of legalese. So just so we're throwing that out there, I am just an enthusiast, again, for transparency. We're going to be doing some updates. I've been watching the trial. I watched all of it last year. I'm going to watch all of it this year. And Judge Canone is already ticking everybody off. So that's a lot of fun, but we're going to handle some housekeeping first. First, the jury is currently set at 18 seated jurors who are sworn in. That is going to get dwindled to 12 one way or the other, whether through jury attrition or through they get to the end of proceedings and then there's going to be a lottery of who gets to actually stay. I must say that would tick me off if I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody about this case, had to rearrange my whole life to come to trial every day, and then the day before we deliberate, oh, you're not needed. The anger I would have. I understand that there can only be 12 deliberating jurors, but the anger I would feel. So, through no fault of my own, right? If I'm saying just in the lottery. Anywho, we have that going on. And then the court schedule last year, I've been trying to look up what the court schedule is. I will get back to you on that. Last year, we had Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays as full court days with half days on Thursdays, and the court was black or was not happening on Fridays. So I will update you on that as I get. There might be a little note here when we get there. But I gotta find that out. I've been trying to look it up and I keep getting the dates from 2024 and I'm like, I don't need those. But anyway, court started yesterday, and as I said, Judge Canone was not only ticking everybody off, but ticked off at everybody because Brennan, the Stretch Armstrong of this trial, once again made some reaches with 4 additional motions over the weekend right before opening statements were to begin. Judge Canone was like, you had some motions, Mr. Brennan? She was really not feeling that. There were a whole bunch of things of what he wanted the defense to keep out of opening. He said that ARCCA wasn't allowed to be mentioned. And there's some of their key witnesses, expert witnesses in the case. And the whole defense table was just like, what? And then Judge Canone was like, yeah, I'm okay with them not being allowed to mention ARCCA. But the F. And so that led to a counter argument, which led to a sidebar, which led to just a full recess with them all going in chambers. And when they came out, much longer than I'm sure they intended to, the defense table looked extremely unhappy. So I think that, and I'm not saying Judge Canone has seemed biased, but she definitely has seemed anti-ARCCA is what I will say. She's been mad about ARCCA the entire time, last trial and everything. So there's that. But everything was getting denied by Judge Canone. There were not allowed to be independent readers. Independent readers are additional charges that are only kind of tangentially, not directly related to the case, and surcharges that could be tacked on. Brennan asked for those. The judge didn't even do anything with it. She was just like, yeah, well, no, you're not doing that. And then he was also denied the request to not allow for the dog bite wounds to be brought up in the defense's opening statement. Yes, the reason why the defense is saying that John O'Keefe has injuries on the inner part of his right arm, he didn't want them to be allowed to surmise, hint, or indicate in any way, shape, or form that those were dog bite or animal wounds. And she denied that. They brought it up. It's not a major part of their case, but the reason why it is important is because it puts John O'Keefe in the Albert home. So that's why that is actually important to them. It's not just that a car didn't cause the injuries. It's that Okay, hey, well, where was a dog for him to get dog bite wounds? So there we go. That's what we're going with. And court started off with opening statements, as it always does. Prosecution, also called the Commonwealth. I will interchange those terms. Apologies if that drives you crazy. Throughout the thing, Brennan's argument was great. Not his argument, his opening statement was great. It was linear. It gave a timeline. It gave a storyline. It was compelling. It was easy to follow. Much leagues better than last trial. But yeah, he also did something that was really nice. He gave a human aspect, pointed out some of John O'Keefe's family members in the court, and gave some statements about him adopting his children, being an adopted family man, and stuff like that. And I really appreciated that. There were other people I saw in other comment sections and stuff that also appreciated that. And it's not to try to gain sympathy from the jury to sway them one way or the other, because they know someone passed away, but it just adds a little more gravity and brevity to the situation to let you know who this victim was a little more, so that they can take the case, like, just so they know, like, remember why you're here. Someone lost their life. And if you tell them a little bit about that person, it doesn't become some vague, nebulous idea of a person. It's like, no, this person. So I like that. I appreciated that. And then he really brought up a lot of, like I said, he was more compelling. He gave some more details, but didn't give too many details, so we got lost in the weeds with that stuff. And he just laid it out. I loved it. I was like, good opening statement. All right, I'm on board with that. Cool. So then he went into talking about the facts, science, and data. He said that about 3 times. He only mentioned the I hit him 3-time statement once, as opposed to 5. And it was just an overall really good. I was like, all right, good job, Brennan. And then we have Alan Jackson instead of Mr. Yannetti this time, who was coming in hot and spicy. Less than a minute into his opening statement, he's already mentioning Trooper Proctor getting fired. He also made an emphasis, do you know how hard it is for a state trooper to get fired? And he pointed out that the prosecution did not mention that their lead investigator got fired. And he even pointed out, and you can bet that's by design. Those weren't the exact words, but it was along those lines. He already started in hot. He called witnesses liars, specifically the Alberts and the McCabe's. He was pointing out connections, personal and social connections between Trooper Proctor and the Alberts. And he was like, and he was at the head table of weddings. They went on vacation together. They hung out all the time. And who was that investigator? Oh, that was Brian Albert. And he did that a few times, and that's a very strategic pause. If you lets the jury answer in their heads for themselves. And when people come up with an answer for themselves, they're more likely to continue to believe that unless they are given overwhelming evidence against it. I will say that while it was hot, spicy, and all of the Alan Jackson that we love, I do think that he messed up a little bit. I will say he messed up a little bit. I hope he has some science behind this coming up in this trial, because he said that John O'Keefe did not suffer from hypothermia. That's what the medical report said he passed away from. What are you talking about, Alan Jackson? So that's a little bit of an overpromise. I hope you don't underdeliver. That's really not going to put the jury on your side. But the only thing I can think of why they went against what has been in medical reports and such is because he can't have John O'Keefe outside for too long. He needs him to be in the house. He did mention that. He went into something saying that based on the science that we will show later, that he had to have died in a warmer climate, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, I hope you got some people to back that up. And I'm hoping that they do. There's a lot a lot of new experts being brought in this trial. And he, like I said, he already threw just Proctor under the bus. He went hard and said this lead investigator who got fired for his conduct on this trial, he was protecting the Alberts. Yes, because he's a Boston cop too. And he was bringing up quotes from text messages, and he told them, oh, you'll see those text messages later. Don't you worry. And so it was crazy. He came in hot and spicy. I'm hoping there wasn't an... the hypothermia thing really threw me for a loop. I was like, what? The peaches you just say, sir? Okay. Let's see how that plays out. And then we began with witness number 1, who was the first paramedic on the scene, the first paramedic to reach the victim, John O'Keefe's body, paramedic Nuttall. And paramedic Nuttall, when it came to cross-examination, like, direct examination went very normal. He was like, yeah, this, that, the other thing, timelines, here's my training and background. And training and background does get mentally tedious, but I think it's really important. And Brennan did a really good job. He had him go through his stuff in kind of a succession timeline. And you have to do that because the defense spent a better part of their opening saying how incompetent and the buffoonery that littered this investigation. So in order to combat that, the Commonwealth is going to have everybody leading up to Proctor saying, yeah, that guy's messed up. But these other people, they have credentials and have their training and have their P's and Q's lined up, you know? So I think it's a necessary part of anything. You want to know some of the background because you want to know that that person who was doing a job is qualified to do the job they did in an investigation. And so paramedic Nuttall went through all of that. He talked about when he got to the scene. But then when it came to cross-examination, it got muddy, it got messy, and I don't think that the paramedic, personally, this is my speculation opinion, I don't think he was trying to be deceitful. I think this man was just confused because he was confused by Trooper Proctor's report that was shown to him. He was like, I never said the thing about praying over a victim. I didn't know that. I misheard her. I misspoke last time I said that. She said I hit him twice. She said it 3 times in a row. And he's like, well, that's different from all the other testimony that you had. And he's like, I just said that I hit him. I don't know. I heard her say it 3 times. And listen, if you're going to ask me, because being a paramedic, going and saving lives and taking care of things, that's just their day-to-day job. Keep that in mind. That's just them going to work and coming home. Just like every fast food worker doesn't remember every order that happened just because, I work in a factory. I don't remember everything I said to everybody at any given time when I'm at work just doing my stuff. That's his day-to-day regular job. So asking him to remember a typical day on the job of saving someone, doing a paramedic thing, he's like, it was 3 years ago, or yeah, it was 2022. It was 3+ years ago. I couldn't tell you what happened 3 months ago at my job. So he was just like, that's what I can remember. I mean, if it says I said that, then I said that. I don't remember. So, again, I don't think he was trying to be deceitful. I think that man was just lost. He was caught out on some differences between his thing. I think Alan Jackson was nitpicking a little too hard about, so that's different, right? That means that's different, right? I understand he's supposed to poke holes, but I also think you need to know the witnesses that you need to go in on and the witnesses that you can back off of. He did have a good moment with Alan Jackson with paramedic Nuttall when he had said that so you went like this and you made a motion, and it was because Mr. Nuttall has a very strong accent, and he kept saying Pharaoh instead of furrow, and Alan Jackson had no idea what he saw. He was like, what is a pharaoh? And he was trying to make the mark. He was like, yeah, I was just indicating the mark. I was trying to charade, what I was saying, because there was a miscommunication. And Alan Jackson was like, oh, right. I misunderstood what you said, because you have a very strong accent, and that was my bad. So that was a nice little exchange. He did pull back there, had a little chuckle about it between the two of them, and that was nice. Then we got into the next witness, which I thought was very smart of the prosecution to have their second witness be Carrie Roberts. Carrie Roberts was a good friend of John O'Keefe. They went to high school together, but their friendship didn't get close until after he had adopted his niece and nephew. And the niece and Carrie Roberts' son did a lot together. They dropped kids off at different events. Like, oh yeah, John's going to pick you up from practice. Oh, John's going to drop you off here, blah, blah, blah. So it was that sort of friendship that developed over parenting, bonding, and helping. It takes a village, all that stuff. And she got to know his parents really well. She also gave some human aspects, shared some nice memories between them. It was very good. She also was the person, one of the 3 people first at the scene of the Alberts lawn the morning of the incident, because she was one of the first people at 5 a.m. that Karen Reed called, frantic, trying to find John. And so she met up with Karen Reed and Jen McCabe. Carrie Roberts drove her car as they drove, and Jen was giving directions to Carrie as they went up to Fairview. And because Karen Reed, according to Carrie Roberts, had said, I left John at the waterfall. And it was Jen McCabe who said, by Carrie's words, not by Karen Reed, by Carrie's words, oh, no, you dropped him off at my sister's place last night. So Karen went. She also revealed that Karen Reed had called and said, I drank so much that I didn't remember. Girl, why were you behind a wheel? Why were any of those people behind a wheel? And that's why Carrie had went to go pick her up. She was like, stop wherever you are. I'm going to come find you. You shouldn't be driving. So she was there with them. They found the body outside, and that's where we left off. Oh yeah, Judge Canone, one thing about her is she is punctual. When it's break time, when it's lunchtime, when it's day overtime, she has some very firm boundaries, and this woman is really like, that's the end of court. I will see you all here tomorrow, and bye. And she doesn't care how good your flow is going. She doesn't care where that cliffhanger is, and that's where we were left in court but the defense team, knowing how Judge Canone will just pop off and leave right away, she doesn't wait for anybody. They were like, hold on, Your Honor, we want to argue this thing about ARCCA because we can't get over ARCCA. Again, I really stand by that. Judge Canone doesn't like ARCCA. I don't know if she doesn't like them or if she doesn't like the defense team's connection to ARCCA, whatever it may be. But Brennan said they violated Rule 14 of turning over evidence because they didn't turn over text messages that they had. And Mr. Alessi went up and said, the text messages are old messages. They weren't anything significant. They had been deleted a long time ago. We can't retrieve them for you. But Miss Little, another one of the defense attorneys, made a document summarizing what the text messages were about, saying we did turn over what we had. The text message, and she was like, you knew you were supposed to preserve those. And Mr. Leslie was like, yeah, and they were supposed to preserve the metadata from the video cam footage that they didn't give over. And you didn't yell at them about that. There were no mentions of Brady violations. Judge Canone has given no flack to the prosecution about the little clip drips from video evidence that they had full 100% access to before the last trial that they didn't get until February of this trial. So why are we getting mad about some deleted text messages, they said they really weren't significant. It was really, what dates are you available? Here's where your hotel room is. Here's the times we need you to be ready. When are you planning on emailing these documents so we can turn them over? That was one of the things that they said was in the text messages. It was really just time exchanges of availability. It wasn't anything crazy, wasn't anything directly about information that ARCCA would or wouldn't be sharing. And they said it was just a fast way to say, hey, here's your, here's where you're staying at the room, you're going to be under this name, etc. And the prosecution's making a big deal about it. Judge Canone's making it an even bigger deal and ticking everybody off in the process. Because this is what we're saying. We're not saying she's biased, but we're saying she let in a non-medical doctor to make medical injuries after she said ARCCA wasn't allowed to do that. Then she was forced to allow ARCCA to do that or dismiss the prosecution's expert. She didn't want to dismiss the prosecution's expert. She would rather violate what she said was a Massachusetts law, let them get away with not turning over evidence over the course of a year when they had it and could have sent it all at once. It's just been a mess. I was angry, and it just, when I was watching that, I was going, are you kidding me, Judge C? Get it together. And I have seen rumblings that she's also already ticking everybody off. Because she was like, they're not allowed to testify until we voir dire them about your violation issues. And it's like, really, lady? She just does not like ARCCA. And Brennan, I think he's afraid of ARCCA. Whatever ARCCA has to say, the biomedical engineers from the federal trial, the stuff they have to say scares him. I think that what they say breaks his case too much, and that is why he is doing everything and anything, grasping at any straw to try to keep them out, keep their testimony limited, whatever he can do, because I think that whatever they have to say, whatever testing and reports they have to show, ruins the case. And so that's the only reason I can think of why he is so desperate to keep them out. So we're all getting angry. Let me know how you feel about things so far. If you watched it, I will link the trial where you can watch it below. I will give access to a place you can watch it with and without commentary as well. And yeah, that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next summary.